Have you ever gone on a trip thinking it would be nothing but fun, only for it to turn into the kind of story that no one can ever forget? This is exactly what happened to Mark and his 12-year-old daughter, Lily. They weren't looking for trouble, or adventure, or anything out of the ordinary. They just wanted a quiet weekend together. Mark had been working long hours at his job, barely finding time to be with Lily. So when she asked, "Dad, can we go camping, just the two of us?" he couldn't say no. He packed the car with a brand new tent, a small cooler, and Lily's favorite marshmallows. It was supposed to be simple, wholesome father-daughter bonding time. The drive out to the forest felt calm at first. Tall pine trees lined the narrow road, their branches stretching over the car like a tunnel. Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the sunlight flicker between the leaves. "It looks like the trees are alive," she whispered. Mark laughed it off. But the deeper they went, the quieter it got. No more birds. No cars passing by. Just the crunch of gravel under the tires. When they finally reached the campsite near the edge of a lake, Mark noticed how still the water was, like glass, not a ripple. They set up the tent, roasted marshmallows, and tried to shake off the eerie silence. But as the sky darkened, a feeling of unease crept in. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was too quiet. No crickets, no owls, no rustling in the bushes. Lily kept glancing around nervously. "Dad, do you feel like someone's watching us?" Mark told her it was just her imagination. Yet, deep down, he felt it too. Something about this place was off. And then, just as they were about to turn in for the night, they both heard it, one sharp, distant snap of a branch. Not an animal. Not the wind. Something deliberate. That sound, the sharp snap of a branch, froze both Mark and Lily in place. They sat completely still, staring into the shadows beyond the firelight. Mark's first instinct was to reassure his daughter. "Probably just a deer," he whispered, forcing a smile he didn't feel. But even as he said it, his chest tightened. He knew that wasn't the sound of an animal wandering by. It was heavier. More intentional. The fire crackled, throwing strange shapes against the trees. Lily moved closer to her father, clutching his arm. "Dad, it's not just us out here, is it?" Her small voice trembled. Mark shook his head quickly. "No, honey. Don't worry. We're safe." But his eyes kept darting to the darkness, scanning the tree line. The silence pressed in again, heavy and unnatural. And then, another sound. Not a branch this time. A slow, dragging step, like someone trying not to be heard. Mark stood up quickly, grabbing the flashlight from the table. The beam of light cut across the campsite, revealing nothing but trees and mist curling low to the ground. He swept the flashlight left to right, heart pounding, but there was nothing there. At least, nothing visible. Trying to keep the mood calm, he led Lily into the tent. "We'll feel better in the morning." "It's just nerves," he said, zipping it shut. But as the night stretched on, neither of them could sleep. Every time Mark's eyes closed, a faint scratching sound seemed to move around the tent, circling them. Sometimes it was close. Sometimes farther away. Hours passed like that, until finally, just before dawn, the noises stopped. Mark opened the tent flap and stepped out cautiously. The forest was bathed in pale blue light. It looked normal again, harmless. Maybe it had all been in their heads. But then Mark froze. In the dirt, right next to the fire pit, were footprints. Not animal tracks. Not random scuffs. They were bare, human footprints. Small ones. Like a child's. And here's the thing. Lily had been inside the tent all night. Mark crouched down, staring at the footprints as his stomach dropped. They were faint but clear enough, 5 small toes pressed into the soft soil. They circled the campfire, then led toward the tree line, and vanished into the woods. His first thought was simple: how? He had been awake most of the night. Lily hadn't left the tent. So who, or what, had been there? He called for his daughter. "Lily, stay in the tent, okay?" His voice shook, but he tried to sound firm. He didn't want her to see the tracks. Not yet. He followed the prints with the flashlight still in his hand, though daylight was breaking. The tracks moved about 20 feet into the forest, then stopped. No signs of struggle, no continuation in the soil. It was as if whoever had left them had simply disappeared. Back at camp, Lily peeked out of the tent flap. "Dad? What is it?" Mark forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetie. Just, maybe some hikers." But he could tell from her face she didn't believe him. Kids know when their parents are lying. Trying to shake off the unease, they ate breakfast in silence. The forest seemed normal again, birds chirping, sunlight filtering through the trees. But Mark couldn't ignore the strange heaviness in the pit of his stomach. Later that morning, while Lily was roasting a marshmallow for fun, Mark noticed something on the edge of the woods, a shape, just barely visible. He narrowed his eyes. It was a figure. Small. Still. Watching. He blinked and stepped forward. In that split second, the figure darted behind a tree. "Dad? What's wrong?" Lily asked, noticing his sudden tension. Mark hesitated. "Stay here." He walked quickly toward the tree, heart pounding with every step. When he reached it, though, the figure was gone. No child. No footprints. Nothing. Just silence. But on the bark of the tree, scratched deep into the wood, were 3 words. "Don't go deeper." Mark staggered back, chills running down his spine. Someone, or something, was trying to warn them. But why? And what exactly was waiting in those woods? By midday, the tension in the forest had grown unbearable. Mark tried to distract Lily with small games, counting birds, spotting animals, but even she wasn't fooled. Every rustle, every shadow made her glance nervously at her father. As they moved toward a small clearing to stretch their legs, Mark noticed someone sitting on a fallen log. An old man, hunched over, ragged clothes, long gray beard. His eyes were fixed on the trees, but when he finally looked at Mark, they were empty, distant, like he had seen things no one should ever see. "Sir, are you okay?" Mark called out cautiously. The man didn't respond at first. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "You shouldn't be here. They don't like visitors." Mark's heart raced. "Who doesn't?" The man's eyes flicked to the shadows surrounding the clearing. "The ones who watch, the ones who whisper." Before Mark could ask more, the stranger slowly stood up. Mark noticed he moved unnaturally, fast, almost gliding over the forest floor. In seconds, he disappeared into the dense trees, leaving no footprints, no broken branches, nothing. Lily clung to Mark's arm, wide-eyed. "Dad, was he even real?" Mark didn't answer. He couldn't. Because for the first time that day, he truly believed they were not alone in the woods. And now, there was no turning back. As they left the clearing, the forest seemed to close in around them. Every step they took was accompanied by the faintest whisper, almost like someone repeating their names softly, just beyond hearing. Lily shivered. "Dad, it's like the trees are alive," she whispered. Mark didn't respond. He kept his eyes on the path ahead, praying they'd make it back to the campsite safely. But deep down, he knew the real danger had only just begun. Mark and Lily returned to their campsite, expecting the familiar comfort of their small fire and neatly arranged gear. But something was wrong. Everything looked different. The cooler was gone. The lantern. Even the extra blankets and backpacks, they were all missing. Only the tent remained, standing silently in the early morning light. Mark's stomach churned. This isn't possible," he muttered, scanning the surrounding woods. No animal tracks. No broken branches. Nothing. It was as if their belongings had simply evaporated into thin air. Lily, sensing her father's panic, grabbed his hand. "Dad, what happened? Where's our stuff?" Mark forced a smile. "I don't know, maybe someone else came into the campsite while we were gone." Maybe a hiker or a ranger. But he knew that explanation didn't fit. No one had been on the trail. No one was supposed to be here. The day dragged on. Mark tried to distract Lily, exploring the area cautiously, collecting fallen sticks, and attempting to rebuild a small fire. But every few minutes, strange noises echoed through the forest, soft thuds, low whispers, and the distant crack of snapping branches. Each sound made Lily flinch and Mark tense, scanning the trees as if expecting the world to suddenly reveal a hidden danger. As night fell, Mark set up the remaining firewood, determined to keep some sense of normalcy. Lily fell asleep quickly in the tent, exhausted from the day. But Mark couldn't rest. He watched the shadows dance across the campsite, listening intently. And then he saw them. Shapes moving between the trees, tall, silent, almost floating. He shone his flashlight, but the figures vanished instantly, leaving behind nothing but darkness. And then, the whisper returned. Louder this time, clearer. Mark. Lily. Mark's heart pounded. Whoever, or whatever, was out there, they knew their names. And they were still watching. The next morning, Mark tried to keep things calm. He couldn't let Lily see the fear written all over his face. He packed what little they had left and decided they would take a short hike along the forest trail. The idea was simple: stretch their legs, find some birds or squirrels, and remind themselves that the forest was just a forest. But as they walked, a strange tension hung in the air. The sunlight filtering through the trees felt muted, almost gray, and every snap of a twig made their heads whip around. Lily clutched her father's hand tightly. "Dad, it's like someone's following us." Mark forced a smile. "It's just us. Look, see that squirrel?" But even as he said it, a shadow moved too quickly between the trees. It wasn't an animal. Too tall. Too deliberate. They followed the trail deeper, past the small creek that marked the middle of the forest. There, carved into a tree, was another symbol, like the spiral marks they had seen earlier, only this one had fresh scratches, still glistening as if cut yesterday. Lily whispered, trembling, "Dad, why is it like they're leaving messages for us?" Mark swallowed hard. I don't know." Then the wind picked up. Leaves swirled in patterns, almost as if guiding them. The trail seemed familiar, yet twisted in impossible ways. Every turn led them back near the clearing, the same spot where the strange old man had appeared. And then Lily stopped abruptly. "Dad, look!" On the forest floor lay something that made Mark's blood run cold, a small backpack, the same color and size as the one that had disappeared from their campsite. But it wasn't theirs. The whispers returned, soft and teasing, circling around them. "Turn back, or follow." Mark's hand tightened around Lily's. One decision lay before them: retreat to safety or venture deeper into the forest to uncover the truth behind the whispers. Mark took a deep breath, gripping Lily's hand tightly. There was no turning back now. Something, or someone, was guiding them deeper into the forest, and every instinct screamed at him to leave. But the strange backpack lying on the ground called to him, promising answers he didn't yet want but needed. They moved cautiously along a narrow, barely visible path. The trees grew taller, denser, their branches forming twisted arches overhead. The light from the morning sun barely filtered through, creating strange patterns that danced along the trail. Every sound seemed amplified: the crunch of leaves underfoot, the faint scurry of unseen animals, the occasional whisper that seemed to come from every direction at once. Lily shivered beside him. "Dad, are we going the right way?" Mark forced a reassuring smile. "We'll know soon, Lily. Just stay close." As they walked, the forest seemed to shift around them. Rocks appeared where there had been none, and the spiral carvings on the trees became more frequent, almost like a breadcrumb trail, but darker, more urgent. At one point, they passed a clearing, and Mark froze. Shadows moved unnaturally among the trees, far too quick to be human. One of the figures paused and stared straight at them before melting into the underbrush. "Did you see that?" Lily whispered, clutching him even tighter. Mark nodded silently, his heart hammering. The trail led them to a small, overgrown path descending into a ravine. At the bottom, a faint glow flickered, like a lantern left unattended. The whispers grew louder here, circling around them, almost chanting. Mark swallowed hard. "Lily, stay right behind me." They descended cautiously. The glow revealed remnants of what seemed like a campsite, long abandoned. Rusted tins, a broken lantern, and an old, torn notebook lay scattered among the leaves. But what caught Mark's attention most was the faint outline of a small handprint, pressed deep into the dirt, pointing toward the shadows beyond. The whispers shifted, clearer now. "Follow, follow, or regret." Mark looked at Lily, fear and determination mixing in his eyes. Whatever lay ahead, they couldn't stop now. The deeper Mark and Lily went, the darker the forest seemed to become, despite the daylight still filtering weakly through the dense canopy. Every step brought them closer to the whispers, which had grown from eerie murmurs to distinct phrases. "You shouldn't be here, leave now, follow." The voices carried an urgency that made Mark's chest tighten. Finally, the trail opened up to a small clearing, almost hidden by thick vines and trees. There, partially camouflaged by moss and overgrowth, was a cabin. Its wooden walls were cracked, and smoke faintly rose from a chimney that looked long abandoned. Yet, the smell of something burning, something sweet and faintly metallic, hung in the air. Lily clung to Mark's side. "Dad, is someone living here?" Mark shook his head. "I don't think so, but we need to be careful." He approached slowly, flashlight in hand, scanning the perimeter. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but curiosity and the desire to find answers held him in place. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty. Broken furniture and scattered papers littered the floor. Mark's flashlight illuminated strange symbols on the walls, spirals, X's, and shapes that seemed to twist and move when he blinked. Then Lily's eyes caught something, a small, makeshift bed in the corner, covered with old, tattered blankets. And on it, a doll, eerily familiar. It had been Lily's favorite doll, the one she had brought to the campsite. "Dad, that's my doll," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's stomach sank. How could it possibly be here? No one had been near their tent, no one had touched their belongings, or had they? Suddenly, a sound behind the cabin made them both jump, a soft tapping, like fingers drumming against wood. The whispers grew louder, overlapping into a chaotic chorus, "Follow, follow, follow." Mark's heart pounded. Whatever force had led them here wasn't done. They had crossed an invisible line, and the forest itself seemed alive, guiding them towards something both terrifying and necessary. Mark and Lily stepped cautiously around the cabin, the whispers now swirling in every direction. The forest felt alive, as if it was breathing around them, watching, judging. Every crack of a branch or rustle of leaves made Lily squeeze her father's hand tighter. Near the back of the cabin, partially covered by vines, Mark noticed what appeared to be a small trapdoor. It was old, wooden, and slightly ajar, revealing darkness that seemed to stretch downward indefinitely. Faint scratches and symbols were carved into the edges, similar to the spirals and X's they had seen throughout the forest. "Dad, should we go in?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide with both fear and curiosity. Mark hesitated. His instincts screamed no, but his need for answers won. "We have to. Just stay close to me." They lifted the trapdoor carefully, the hinges groaning as the dark space below revealed a narrow staircase descending into the earth. The air that emerged smelled damp, earthy, and carried a faint, metallic tang. Mark flicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing walls lined with more carvings, warnings, or perhaps instructions left by those who had come before. Step by step, they descended. The staircase ended in a small underground chamber. Strange markings covered the walls, glowing faintly as if illuminated by an unseen light source. In the center of the room sat a circle of stones, and in the middle of the circle, a small, tattered backpack. It was Lily's. "Dad, that's mine," she whispered, stepping forward, reaching for it. Before she could touch it, A cold wind blew through the chamber, extinguishing their flashlight. In the pitch black, the whispers returned, louder, clearer. You are not alone, you cannot leave, follow the path. Mark's heart raced. The forest, the cabin, the underground passage, everything was connected. The mysteries, the warnings, the vanished supplies, they were part of something bigger. And now, the final part of the forest's secret awaited them. Mark held Lily close as the whispers echoed around the underground chamber. His flashlight flickered back to life, revealing the circle of stones glowing faintly, almost like the carvings themselves were alive. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, following a pattern in the carvings that seemed to point toward a hidden corner of the room. There, behind a stack of old wooden crates, they found a narrow tunnel. The air was damp and cool, carrying a faint, familiar scent. Lily clutched her father's hand tightly, but her fear was mixed with curiosity. "Dad, do you think we'll finally find it?" Mark nodded, his voice steady. "We have to try, Lily. Whatever's been happening, this is where it ends." They moved down the tunnel, the whispers fading, replaced by a soft hum that seemed almost comforting. At the end of the passage, the light of day shimmered through a hidden opening. And there, in a small clearing surrounded by trees, lay the missing items, the backpacks, the lantern, and even Lily's doll. But most importantly, there were no shadows, no whispers, no figures. Everything that had haunted them was gone. As they stepped forward, a figure emerged from behind a tree. It was the old man from the clearing. He nodded at Mark and Lily. The forest only wanted to be understood. Those who respect it can leave safely. Those who do not, are lost forever. Mark exhaled, relief washing over him. Lily hugged her father tightly, tears in her eyes. "Dad, we're safe?" "Yes, Lily. We're safe," he replied, looking around the serene forest, finally feeling the calm he had been chasing. The mystery had been solved. The forest had tested them, guided them, and ultimately, released them. As they walked back toward their campsite, the sun rose higher, painting the trees in warm golden light. The whispers were gone, replaced by birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. Mark glanced down at Lily, smiling. "Next time, maybe just a weekend at the lake." Lily laughed, and for the first time in 2 days, they felt free. The forest had kept its secrets, but now, Mark and Lily were no longer just visitors, they were survivors, carrying a story that would stay with them forever.